I'd like to discuss Chainsaw Man Part 2 in a different way than everyone else. The first 3 chapters have got me thinking. In fact, I've been writing this video since chapter 1. From that moment, it became clear to me. Intimacy will be a big part of Chainsaw Man Part 2, similar to how it was within the first part of the story, and it's going to revolve around Asa, Denji, and the War Devil, primarily. Now, from the jump, we see that Asa is similar to Denji in more ways than one, but in the same breath, they couldn't be any more different. In the introduction, Denji as a character is selfless. He does things for the benefit of others. When Denji dies, we get a flashback that illustrates this. If ever he were to die, Puchita should take his body and live on. That is his wish. Juxtapose this to Asa. When she dies, she wishes she had lived more selfishly and enjoyed life a little better. Now, obviously, there are differences here. The circumstances are not exactly one-to-one, as Asa didn't have someone like Puchita in her life at this time, but I believe the point still stands. Both of these characters start the series as extremely broken individuals. Both are orphans, Asa to devils and Denji to himself, at least according to Makima. Both seek companionship and love, and obviously have a life-changing event on the cusp of death where they become hybrids. I believe that Asa's story will continue to mirror Denji's as the story goes along. I don't believe that she'll be the main antagonist of the story, or at least of part 2, and this is where the intimacy comes in. Now, if we are to take Denji and Power's promise to face value, the Blood Fiend will return. Maybe it'll look like Power, maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be a woman, and in that same breath, maybe it won't. But there's a chance that it won't happen. I highly doubt that, but it's a possibility. That brings me to Asa. I believe she and Denji will form some kind of intimate relationship with each other, whether it be romance or a friendship. Only time will tell. As we can see, 3 chapters in and Denji's nowhere to be seen. They're both young people looking for love. Denji's already found this with Power, Aki, and so many other people he's touched on his journey thus far. And I think Asa will indeed fall in love with Denji, and her preconceived notion will be shattered about the Chainsaw Man. Now, we need to talk a little bit about the War Devil. At first, this devil comes off as somewhat dastardly, but this isn't how she seems to be, showing genuine care for Asa in the 3rd chapter, especially over something so minute, something that she should not care about. If we juxtapose how she acts, she threatens to kill her in previous chapters and then asks her if she wants her to kill the people who are bullying her. Interactions like this make me believe that seeing Denji and Puchita's relationship can and will have an effect on Asa and the War Devil. Now, there's a chance that Denji will fall for her as well, and I think this is very likely to happen in typical Chainsaw Man fashion, and she'll try to kill him because, as we saw in chapter 2, the War Devil and Asa herself are 2 separate entities with different wants and goals. She wants her body back, and the War Devil wants to kill the Chainsaw Man. On top of that, the War Devil said that when people fall for her, they become her weapons, and some of the early Chainsaw Man 2 imagery feels like it's foreshadowing this concept. Then again, it could be a red herring, but only time will tell. I can easily see the story taking a similar turn to the Gun Devil arc, but maybe this time Denji finds a way to save Asa, to redeem himself for killing Aki. But regardless of which way the intimacy of Chainsaw Man Part 2 goes, I'm beyond excited, and I'll tell you why. Tatsuki Fujimoto's strongest and most interesting aspect to me in every story he writes is its intimacy, whether it be from friendships, familial bonds, or romance. I think these aspects are extremely interesting because of how complex they are and how relatable they are at the same time. And today I'm going to look at all of Tatsuki Fujimoto's works and analyze them to my best ability to see how it affects, elevates, and shapes the narrative of the stories being told. So let's start. Fire Punch is an interesting story. It tackles so many different themes so well. It is a testament to how good of a writer Tatsuki Fujimoto is. Agni as a character is deeply interesting due to the connections he forms throughout the series, the intimacy he shares with so many characters, and how similar yet different each interaction truly is. To me, Fire Punch represents the dark side of love, the obsession, the things it makes us do, no matter how bad it can be, and the toxic nature of it all. When thinking about the story, I can't help but associate it with the phrase love is blind, not only in a metaphorical sense, but in a literal sense, as Agni often goes into a blind rage when the people he loves are in danger, losing all his sensibility as he blacks out in the process. We see this when he kills Doma, despite not wanting to, when they first have their fateful reunion. And not only Doma, but all Doma's innocent children as well. This story plays upon the unhealthy fantasies we as people create in our heads, our high expectations that are devoid of reality. Agni continues to chase Judah, fooling himself into believing that she is his dead sister Luna because they look and sound the same, despite knowing Luna had died a long time ago. Love can be and oftentimes is destructive. It can hurt the people involved. Agni pushes himself to an unreasonable amount in the pursuit of seeing his sister, or who he believes to be his sister, who he is tricking himself into believing, rather, is his sister. He's obsessed, leading him to make so many mistakes when all rationale is thrown out the window. He's holding on to his sister's final words as he tortures himself, unable to end his own suffering, no matter how hard he tries. Look Back explores the relationship between Ayumi Fujino and Kiyomoto, two elementary school students who draw and submit manga to their school newspaper. Fujino is praised for her exceptional abilities, but after Kiyomoto starts publishing her own manga alongside Fujino's, she proves that she is the better artist among the two. Fujino sees this as a challenge and uses it to improve her skills as an artist. In doing so, she isolates herself from her friends and family, but eventually gives up because no matter what she does, she is unable to surpass Kiyomoto. However, one day, Fujino is tasked with giving Kiyomoto her diploma. This is when the two of their paths become entwined forever. Fujino learns that Kiyomoto had idolized her and that she was her inspiration for creating manga and submitting them in the school paper herself. Fujino is flattered by this revelation as she decides to take back up drawing, her drive finally coming back to her. Fujino and Kiyomoto eventually team up, creating multiple one-shots, becoming a truly unstoppable duo, submitting multiple of them to nothing but high praises until they finally become serialized, each one playing up to the strengths of the other. This aspect symbolizes how people can bring out the best in each other the closer they become, a level of understanding beyond words. Kiyomoto is Fujino's other half and vice versa. Together they complete one another because of how they inadvertently push each other to become better at the things that they do. In fact, Kiyomoto decides to go separate ways because she wants to become a better artist. So she decides to enroll in an art school. This is when our story meets a tragic end as news of a mass murder at an art college reaches Fujino as she learns that one of the victims was Kiyomoto. Being overcome with guilt over the possibility that by encouraging Kiyomoto to pursue an artistic career, she may have indirectly contributed to her death. Fujino returns to the place that it all started, Kiyomoto's house, as she enters her room, seeing that despite the fact that the two hadn't talked for a while, Kiyomoto continued to read the manga they had created together, still using Fujino as her inspiration. Fujino looks back at the past, fantasizes about the possibility of things playing out differently, but ultimately comes back to reality as she continues the manga they started together, using Kiyomoto's death and the memory of how much she loved her work as her motivation. Life is unexpected. The people you love the most can be taken from you in an instant, but sometimes, no matter how hard it hurts, you have to keep going. Not only for your sake, but because it's what they would have wanted as well. And this is just one aspect that Look Back tackles with its storytelling. Just Listen to the Song, like many other works by Tatsuki Fujimoto, explores deeper themes that relates to himself as an author, but again, we're not here to talk about that. The story follows two high school students, the main character and his crush. He confesses to her using a song and she rejects him. The song is shared among the school and then eventually is widespread across the world, gaining millions of views, and it is then picked apart left and right by various walks of life, all trying to decipher what the song's true meaning is. And in doing so, they come to the most insane conclusions. His crush, on the other hand, as opposed to making assumptions, doesn't even try and listen to what the song is saying, as she's the one who shares the link around in the first place and just laughs it off before rejecting him. At the conclusion of the story though, she listens to the song once more and spends some time contemplating its significance in a scene that's reminiscent of Power and Denji sitting together on the train. The two spend a brief moment together while listening to this song. What makes it so special is the fact that our main character had deleted the song off YouTube after releasing another song trying to help people better understand the original message of the first song. The fact that his crush now decided to download both songs and reevaluate their meanings is very significant. I think it's charming how the story ends, a quiet moment listening to a song with your crush. It's a sublime feeling for the main character. The fact that his crush saved both of his songs after he deleted them and listened to them again to reevaluate the message being conveyed feels like the idea of second chances in relationships and the art of communication, and actually listening to what your partner has to say and not what you think they're saying. To put it lightly, just listen to the song. This story follows Yuta Ito as he's tasked with documenting his mother's final days as she's terminally ill. He turns his mother's final days into a film and premieres it at his school's film festival after she dies, but is met with scorn for his decision to end the film with him running away from an exploding hospital. Yuta, who has been at this point bullied and ostracized, decides to off himself by jumping from the roof of his mother's hospital. He's stopped by a girl named Eri, who reveals that she enjoyed this film. Despite its messiness, she enjoyed the realism and unique sensibilities of his film. To her, the good far outweigh the bad. It can be better. She urges him to make a new film that will change the people's perception of him. This time, everyone will be in tears as opposed to scorn. Together, they work to make this happen, alternating between the production and marathoning of different films for motivation and education. Yuta genuinely becomes happy again the longer he spends with Eri. As time passes, Yuta and Eri become closer, and on an unforgettable day, while filming, Eri loses consciousness. She shares the same terminal illness as Yuta's mother. With this shocking revelation, Yuta is once again consumed by depression as it saps his motivation to continue with his movie. This is until his father shares a heartfelt moment with him. It's revealed to us that his mother was abusive. Her last words were calling Yuta useless. We get the context behind so many shots within this film. I do enjoy this moment, and I feel like it's the most important part of the story. Son, I knew it was horrible what she was doing to you, but I pretended not to see it. I ran away. I acted like everything was okay. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's why when I watched your movie, I was shocked. In the movie, your mom she was a good mom. I could only see the beautiful things about her. When mom was in a bad mood, she'd give me the silent treatment, and she'd never praise me for anything. But I wanted my memories of her to be beautiful. Yuta, you have the power to decide for yourself how you'll remember someone. That's an incredible thing. I think maybe Eri wants you to choose how she'll be remembered. With his motivation returned to him, Yuta decides to redeem himself. He wasn't able to film his mother's final breath, but he will do it for Eri. We get a beautiful montage as Fujimoto plays into the visual storytelling of manga. First, it's isolating shots of Eri from their movie, and then we get a shot of them together. Their relationship has blossomed into something more, and I really love this panel. It fills me with happiness seeing how the two enjoy each other's company here, seeing the progression of it all leading up to this point. After Eri died, something changed within Yuta. The movie that they painstakingly made didn't feel right. Something was missing. He began to obsess over this, cutting the movie over and over and over thoroughly through the years despite having no intention to show it to anyone. Yuta is left alone after a fatal accident, a car accident at that. His wife, his daughter, and his father all killed. With nothing left to live for, he records his final words, mirroring his first suicide attempt from all those years ago, as he heads to the abandoned building where he and Eri used to watch movies all the time, where their relationship took form. To his surprise, Eri is there, watching his movie, the movie he made of her. It turns out that she was a vampire all along and not some fictional character that he created in his movie, like they thought, at least like he thought. But here's the catch. Every time she dies, she's reincarnated, and she loses all of her memories every time she's brought back. Thanks to Yuta, however, she's able to relive their time together for as many years as she wants due to his movie. Eri breathes new life into Yuta, and Yuta did the same for her. His movie touched her in ways no one could, and it restores his will to live as he finally finds the perfect cut of his film. An explosion. I love how character-driven story is, like most things Fujimoto does. It's such an endearing story, how death changes people. Even someone truly as shameless as Yuta's mother shaped Yuta's whole life and caused him to touch so many people and form unforgettable relationships, bringing him closer to his father and finding love and redemption in Eri. This is an interesting one, going back to Fujimoto's teenage years. He was 17 when he wrote this, and you can see the makings of a legendary mangaka from even back then. In typical Fujimoto fashion, it's a story primarily about its characters and how they bond over the course of the story being told. 3 characters are followed: Yuto and Ami, 2 humans who are hiding from aliens who invaded Earth who have a taste for human flesh, and an alien named Yuhei. Yuto and Ami are among the last remaining humans on the planet, the 2 hiding in the school's garden, pretending to be chickens, while Yuhei brings them food on a daily basis, oblivious to their true identity. Everything appears to be going well, or as well as it could be given the circumstances, until a new race of aliens arrive on Earth, this time with a palate for chicken. Meanwhile, rumors are circulating around about an alien who's keeping humans hidden from the general public. We discover early on that Yuhei has reservations about eating humans. It's also revealed that Yuhei saving other humans and hiding them in the mountains. But Yuhei isn't the only one keeping a secret here. As the trio flee the mountains, they are apprehended by an alien cop who appears to have killed Yuhei and is about to do the same to Ami. Yuto, who has been posing as a human this entire time, saves her. We flash back 6 months prior to their meeting. Yuto had killed all of Ami's friends, but he spared her life. Why? Because he wanted to know what it was like to live as a human. Maybe the idea of him eating humans and them eating animals weren't the same after all. Whilst pretending, however, he eventually did become human, and not in a literal sense, but metaphorical. To quote Fire Punch, let's look at chapter 80, page 3. I've lived a long time and played a lot of roles, so I've come to learn something. People become who they want to be. People always have preconceived notions about others. It's human nature to pass judgment without first getting to know someone. I'm sure we've all been there. Perspective changes only after we get to know the person in question. It's a good message to live by, if a little cliche. Don't judge a book by its cover. Saski-Kun Has Stopped the Bullet is a very good story. If you haven't read it, you should. The way Fujimoto tackles love within this story is very childlike and innocent. It follows Sasaki, who has a crush on his teacher Kawaguchi. I think we've all been there before with a teacher. I know Kenji Tomichika can vouch, even Joker. It does get a little bit weird in his fixation with his teacher, but it makes sense. He views Kawaguchi as a god. He doesn't pray to her, but he sums up how much he thinks about her and the fact that she can do amazing things as God's work. That is until a terrorist breaks into the classroom and threatens the students' lives. This isn't just any terrorist attack. He is directly connected to our teacher, Miss Kawaguchi, an old flame still hung up on their breakup from high school, using it as an excuse for his sudden downward spiral in life. Sasaki spirals into action. He can't just sit by and allow his teacher to comply with this assailant's perverse request. Listen, I can't say the word. YouTube's gonna have my ass, so use your imagination. As a terrorist fires his gun, Sasaki catches the bullet and eventually talks him down, convincing him to surrender to the police. His love for his teacher far outweighs any kind of fear he was feeling. Miss Kawaguchi pushes him not to give up on his dreams of becoming the first Japanese man on the moon, a goal his late father set for himself but ultimately never achieved because he passed away. She demonstrates the love that only a teacher could have for her student, leading Sasaki to his life-changing event, which could have ended very differently, all things considered. As the story concludes, we flash forward a few years. Sasaki has become the first Japanese man on the moon, and as he speaks to his former teacher about the incident all those years ago, it turns out Miss Kawaguchi was, after all, a god with supernatural powers. There's no other way that Sasaki could catch that bullet, unless he himself was God. Love makes people do crazy things, no matter what or which way this love is presented. And it can also push people to be better. In this case, Sasaki's crush on his teacher caused him to act incredibly stupid and impulsive, and Miss Kawaguchi's love for her student helped him accomplish his dream when no one else believed he could. Love is Blind is a story about the anxiety and self-determination that comes with confessing your feelings to your crush. Ibuki is attempting to confess his feelings to Yuri throughout the story, but something is constantly getting in his way. First, it's his teacher trying to get him to stay back for a student council meeting, due to him being the student council president, of course. Then he's mugged, and even an alien invades Earth threatening to take over. But our student council president has no time for these mild inconveniences. He has to confess to Yuri. It gets really zany really quick, and it's one of the story's strongest aspects. Everyone is intimidated by Ibuki's unwavering determination to complete the task at hand. It's amusing how he can ignore being robbed at knife point and an impending alien invasion, but is scared to confess. We learn the origin of Ibuki's feelings for Yuri. They'd spent a lot of time together. Ibuki considers his achievements to be non-existent without Yuri's assistance. For better or worse, she's always been there, by his side, pushing him, motivating him. The story has a lovely theme. It's the cliche thing you hear couples say, and as you can tell, Fujimoto kind of leans into the cliche, but I think it ultimately does his stories justice. When you find that one person that brings out the best in you, they push you as a person to do and be better. It's something beautiful that should not be taken for granted. Your second half, your other, all wrapped up in a high school romance. It also addresses the anxiety that comes with not being able to express how you feel about someone, and the anxiety that comes with this thing we call love. Shikaku is a story about an assassin named Shikaku. She was neglected the love of her parents as a child. In fact, she was abused by her mother as a child, which had a significant impact on her as a person. The fact that she's an assassin should be proof of this, on top of her being a little weird as a child, and which led to the abuse. Now, don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. I'm not saying that it's her fault. These things are important to get a grip of her character in the story. She's hired by a mysterious man named Ugel to kill him. Yeah, he puts a hit on himself. But he's unable to die because, spoiler alert, he's a vampire. And she apologizes because He's immortal and all, but he's not impervious to pain. However, Yu-Gel forgives her, and he's the first person to do this for her. Ever since she was a child, her mom would look at her weird tendencies and punish her for them, and every time she would say sorry and try to be better, as innocent as it is, albeit a bit misguided, it wouldn't forgive her. Her father, her mother, and seemingly no one in her life has. This seemingly insignificant act of kindness consumes her entire being as she can't stop thinking about him after the fact. It gets so bad that her heart flutters that same night. Without anyone to turn to, she seeks his advice the very next day. He suggests that she go to a hospital, and this is where our story takes a drastic turn. The Japanese government in the story doesn't take it too lightly when a famous assassin just strolls into a hospital one day. This is the big reveal of the story though. She was fine, and the chest pains she was experiencing that night before were caused by feelings for Yu-Gel. See, she was in love, and she confesses this on broad TV. This unexpected confession causes him to burst out laughing, something he hasn't done in 400 years. He decides to act and goes to see her, but things quickly worsen as Shikaku is on the brink of death. That is until he turns her into a vampire, at which point he flash forward to the future and the two begin living together with Shikaku's newly acquired immortality, and the relationship seems pretty healthy. Giving and taking are important aspects of relationship, compromise. Both Shikaku and Yu-Gel the other desired, and as a result they were able to form this relationship. For Shikaku, Yu-Gel treated her with respect. And for Yu-Gel, Shikaku was able to cure his boredom simply by being herself. Because he can't die, he'd been living a very boring and uneventful life. So having someone who could make his life just a little bit more interesting was a blessing. The story follows a young boy, Toshide, as he falls in love with a mermaid through his ability to play piano. Now, to truly understand the story, we need to look at the piano and what it symbolizes. Pianos can provide soothing, comforting tones that can represent satisfaction or romanticism in a person depending on the situation. This is the most well-known and prevalent piece of piano symbolism. The piano represents joy, and this is fitting because the main character and his father share a similar mindset within the story. It is established that Toshide's mother also was a mermaid, and there's a line that he says that later on his father repeats to an extent. I loved her so much that I thought, if it was by someone with a smile as pretty as hers, maybe being eaten wouldn't be so bad. The context behind this is that mermaids tend to eat humans in the story. The story is based on that old saying, at least that's what I'm getting from it, that some men prefer women who remind them of their mothers because a mother's love is unconditional. It's not very subtle that the main character falls for a mermaid the same way his dad did, but I don't think subtlety is what we're going for. This one is pretty straightforward. The main character, who coincidentally is also named Toshide, wakes up one morning and he's a woman, or at least he has the body of a woman. He's been diagnosed with, and I quote, "When I woke up, I became a girl disease." Yeah, which is a chronic illness that turns a man into a woman overnight. The story is about how he deals with his permanent change, and it's a beautiful allegory for transgender people, in my opinion. There is some tension between him and his significant other though, and there's a misconception that because Toshide is now a woman, he must be attracted to men as well, specifically to his girlfriend's older brother. As a result of a discussion the couple had about the subject prior, we learned that this is not the case. What appeared to be romantic interest was actually the desire to become someone similar. Toshide wants to be a man, and despite his physical appearance, he still sees himself as one, and he makes it clear that he will remain so. Him and his girlfriend continue to be in a relationship because their love for each other transcends gender. Love does not discriminate, no matter your race or gender. No matter who you are, love will find a way. Now, I've combined these two stories because I believe that they're quite similar to the overall message being conveyed here, sibling affection. An older sibling can only feel a bond and a sense of pride when thinking about their younger sibling. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the admiration of the elder that only a younger sibling could have. Both stories approach these concepts, however, in different ways. So let's start with Nayuta of the Prophecy. The story is about Nayuta and her brother Kenji. Everyone in their town is naturally afraid of Nayuta because it is believed that she is a demonic child who will bring destruction to the world with her magical abilities. Kenji is no exception, but unlike everyone else, he is able to push aside some of his fear because he is her sole provider, working to assure that she's fed and is willing to risk his life and well-being because he is the older brother, and that's what older brothers do. Communication between the two is a little difficult because Nayuta has trouble speaking in coherent sentences, often saying things like murder, death, killed, making it difficult for him to understand what she's really thinking. And to make matters worse, he frequently sees her eating and killing stray animals, which only adds to his concern. Despite everything though, his love for her as an older sibling outweighs his worry, at least to an extent, as he's seen taking the blame for her actions despite the severe consequences that would come with that responsibility. Nayuta shows concern for her brother in many ways. All the animals she had been killing were for his benefit. She had noticed that he hadn't been eating lately, so that was her attempt of providing for him. In addition, she nearly wiped out the entire town on his behalf as retaliation when he returns home all battered and bruised. She's even been reading an abundance of books, teaching herself how to write in an attempt to bridge the communicational gap between the two of them. Kenji, finally at the end of our story, lets go of his fear, scolding Nayuta for the very first time, seemingly making the bond between the two grow even closer. The story concludes as the two leave that town and search for a new home. Nayuta takes a moment to jot down something in her notepad. Am I scary? You're not scary at all, because you're my adorable baby sister, he simply replies. Now, as for little sister's elder sister, this is probably Fujimoto's tamest and most conventional story to date. That's to say, there's no magical powers here. Mitsuko and Kioku are the story's primary characters, as they both go to the same art school. The theme of sibling admiration dominates the narrative. Even though she starts out as a beginner, Kioku develops her own artistic skills in an effort to be more like her sister Mitsuko, who was their family's primary artist. Mitsuko tries to talk Kyoto out of enrolling in her high school, but Kyoto ignores her. She is so determined to join that her efforts result in her receiving a scholarship as a result of her hard work, and her prize-winning painting is displayed for the entire school to see. One minor problem though, her sister is the primary focus of this painting, and she's painted in the nude. We learned that the inspiration for this piece came from a drawing project that she had to do in her art class. She had to find inspiration, and her sister was just that. Now we should consider what naked paintings represent. There are 4 meanings, but we'll focus on the one that applies to this situation specifically. Nuditas virtualis, which means sinless innocence. Art that strives to be godly, unblemished, and clean, the same way Kyoku views her sister. Nothing compares to the pride of being an older sibling though, so Mitsuko vows to push herself even harder to show her little sister how it's done, by doing a nude painting herself. And by the end of the story, she does just that, replacing Kyoku's old image with her own. The climax of the story sees our 2 sisters having to live together. While Mitsuko is hesitant at first, she doesn't reject the idea. At the end of the day, it's her little sister, and just like Kenji, she loves her dearly. It's a wholesome story about competition and admiration, and I really enjoyed it. Now, I'll keep it brief. Chainsaw Man explores every single concept on this list. It is truly Tatsuki Fujimoto's magnum opus thus far, in my humble opinion. Maybe Fire Punch is slightly better, but I'll save that for my Fire Punch video, so stay tuned. It touches on the family aspect, the romance, the obsession, and so much more in such compelling ways. If you want my thoughts on all of these things, please go watch my Chainsaw Man video, specifically my Power and Denji one, because I go into a lot of the romantic and intimacy and all those undertones in that video. I've gone into such detail on these topics in those videos that it would feel kind of redundant and pointless to reiterate them in such great detail here. Relationships and intimacy is a thing that holds Chainsaw Man together, and I believe it'll play an even bigger role in its sequel. We kinda see this already from the first 3 chapters, that it's already taken a big focal point, this slice of life aspect that chapter 3 is brought to Chainsaw Man that's not uncommon for Tatsuki Fujimoto's work, at least some of them. The writing is on the wall, honestly, and keep in mind the script is being written with only 3 chapters out so far, because with each chapter there's new perspective and new things that I want to add in here, but this is it. So whatever happens in chapter 4, please don't tell me in the comment section, I already know. Asa, Denji, and the new group of devil hunters are going to touch on a lot of Tatsuki Fujimoto's intimate and romantic subtext in his stories, and I truly cannot wait to see where the story goes with these similarities in storytelling in mind. This is Grimtoki, this has been Beyond Animation. If you like anything I had to say, please leave a like, it greatly helps out the channel. Subscribe, turn that bell notification on, and did I say anything that made sense here? Did you read any of these stories? Did you read all of them? I had to read all of them for this video. How do you think Chainsaw Man Part 2 is gonna, and what relationship do you think Denji and Asa will have by the end of it? Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.